Hi everyone, today I am going to talk about rise in sea level. Welcome back. In many Hollywood films, you might have seen the rise in sea level and its catastrophic impact on the civilization. Like these movies. There are not less than 10 movies on this issue. Now, without wasting your time, I am going to cover these three fundamental questions related to the rise in sea levels, especially in Europe and North America. So let us first see the rate of sea level rise in the world. Look at the trend line and ponder over. If you observe from the starting of 20th century, then till now, the sea level have risen about 8 inches. Now, if this trend continues, then what will happen? The projection from NASA scientists reveal that it may rise by as much as 3 feet or more by the end of this century, meaning that the sea levels are not only rising, but its rate is also accelerating, like you accelerate your car or your motorcycle. Likewise, there are many projections and models related to this issue in the different parts of the world. Now I am sharing my study with you about this selected issue. The present trend line is showing the group for high resolution sea surface temperature. I have used NASA's excellent portal to construct this graph. This data is of the North Atlantic region or the region shown in the box. Look at the trend line. It is showing the sea surface temperature in this region. If you observe carefully, you will notice the increasing trend in this SST or sea surface temperature in this region. Now look at what is the likely impact of this sea level rise in Europe and in North America. Let me tell you in the beginning that there are several studies on this issue. I am just taking example from two institutes of the world. One is Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research of Germany and another from the Virginia Institute of Marine Science of United States of America. The Potsdam Institute has worked on the worst case scenario of the sea level rise in the world. The scientists of this institute have tried to answer one key question, that is, what will happen if we were to burn all fossil fuels resources available on the planet Earth, and consequently what will happen due to melting of all ice sheets covering entire Antarctica and Greenland. For this, you can also look at my video on polar environmental problems. Now come to the answer to the question of sea level rise in this region. The burning of entire fossil fuel will result in the rise in sea level by about 58 meters. This map is showing that this will result in the disappearance of whole Netherlands, Hamburg and Berlin. Look at the map and think what will happen to the Germany's coastline and Denmark, where the Copenhagen Climate Change Summit was also held. The map is showing that Denmark would be an island in that case. Now see this map of the United States of America. The dark blue color is showing that almost entire Atlantic coastline of United States would disappear due to this rise in sea level. Apparently, the major cities which will be affected by this rise would be Boston, New York and Miami. The Virginia Institute of Marine Science has also done a separate study on this issue. The institute gathered data of 32 tide gauge stations. From out of 32 stations, 25 stations show that the sea levels are not only rising, but its rate is also accelerating. It is also important to note that the 40% of the US population lives in or near the coastal areas. That is a particularly important issue to this most powerful country of the world. But please remember, all this is worst case scenario. We all know that the non-renewable technologies are also developing and that are also decreasing the reliance over the fossil fuel resources. Therefore, hope is there. Now let us look closely the reason behind the rise in this sea level. The main driver for the rise in global sea level is of course the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. We know that the 71% of the Earth's surface is enveloped by the water, which also has the highest specific heat. Therefore, more than 90% of the greenhouse gas generated heat is trapped or absorbed by the water, meaning oceans of the world. Now when this heat is trapped, then water molecules acquire kinetic energy, hence in turn water expands. This thermal expansion ultimately also results in the rise in sea level in addition to the melting of glaciers in Antarctica and over the Greenland. Look at this simple trend line diagram. It is showing the cumulative CO2 emissions since 1960s to 2015. Now the total emission trends show that the more than half of the total cumulative carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere were injected during the last 40 years. For example, cumulative CO2 emissions for the period between 1750 to 1970, meaning total 220 years, was estimated at 910 gigatons. Now during the period between 1970 to 2010, I mean just 40 years, the total cumulative emissions of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was about 1090 gigatons. All this is according to the IPCC report. Those who have missed the IPCC, kindly listen my video on Global Environmental Program Part 2 or find the link below. So any addition of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere means rise in sea level and consequent inundations in the coastal parts of the world. So in the next video, we will also discuss the rise in sea level and its impact on Asia, where 60% population of the world lives. So with this, we end the video, and I hope you enjoyed the content of this session, and kindly subscribe to the channel for quality content, and thanks for listening and watching.